Hey team, welcome back to the show. Today it is Natalie, Andrea, and I once again, and we are finishing up the Q&A that we started last week. So a lot of questions to work through. We didn't get through very many last week, which is not that surprising. So we'll try to make this a little bit more rapid fire, but honestly, we will see how that goes. Any huge life updates for either of y'all before we get into it? Nice. Okay. In that case, let's just get into the Q&A. Natalie, intensifiers, drop sets, rest pause, etc. Are these overrated or underrated? Thoughts?
Yeah, my thought is that it depends on the context, of course. But generally speaking, like you will see a lot of really great progress from doing straight sets. Is like going to be my basic answer. Intensifiers are fantastic as time savers. Um, in terms of anyone who wants to be a little bit more efficient, like getting in and out of the gym. So like a drop set or rest pause. So it basically delivers that intense training stimulus in a more expeditious manner, let's say. But outside of that, I think that's where they have a good utility. And then, if the client is really struggling with, shiny object syndrome, getting really bored, adding some intensifiers can certainly help on that side of things. But outside of that, you honestly can't beat straight sets for hypertrophy. It's kind of my answer. But also, like, if, this is a great discussion always, but if you have a coach, then I definitely suggest listening to him or her because context is very important.
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of it's typically like a time management tool. If it's something that I'm going to use with clients, not something I'll program all that often. Because if we're looking at like, let's say 3 failure points, let's say I do 2 sets and then a drop set at the end. So 3 total failure points versus 3 straight sets. Like the total hypertrophy we're going to have gotten from those 3 straight sets, like the stimulus will be a bit better. And like the intensifiers will be a little bit like more fatiguing. I mean, again, like not that I'm gonna be too terribly worried about that unless like our volume is too terribly high, but I like rest pause or like myo reps, for example, which are quite similar. When someone's pressed for time, like maybe we're gonna use for your lateral raises or your leg extensions or something of the sort. Like if I want a little bit more total volume, I might use a rest pause or myo reps for like a few movements, but it's not something that I'm going to use all that frequently. And it's like, for, as you said, it's not my preferred. Do you have anything else you would add there, Andrea?
I really agree with all of that, actually. I would say, and this would be more in rest pause than it would be in drop sets, but if somebody's not great at pushing to failure and trying to like nudge them along to that hasn't been clicking, something like an intensifier can help get them there just with more exposure closer to failure, those failure reps. But aside from that, everything that you guys said, I totally agree with.
Like fun tools, but not necessarily a starting point
Hmm.
or a foundation.
All right. How can I become my coach's favorite client? Andrea, how can someone become your favorite client? This is actually one of your clients who asked this. Shout out to Millie.
Millie. Um, she's awesome already. We've only been working together a couple weeks, but she's
Yeah,
awesome.
she's cool.
Um, man, have a good attitude, check in on time, do the work, and communicate well. Like, that's pretty much it.
Anything else you would add there, Natalie? How does one become your favorite client? Who, first of
Everything.
all, who are your favorite clients? List them off.
Well, hold on, because I did make a list. I'm just kidding. Um, Everything that Andrea said, which I think is, highlighted around communication.
Yeah.
So timely communication, check in on time, good attitude. And within that, I'd say, the people who really love this stuff, like who just like have fun with training, they love to learn. When giving them training feedback, they're always like, cool, I'll work on it. Like they just like are a nerd for this stuff and love it. Yeah.
Yeah, just let us all. I mean, it is just fun, and that's I think when you can both like you and the client can both like, oh, isn't this sick? Like, oh, like it's just like so fun to be able to like, hey, we did this, and like right away your RDLs feel so much better.
Hmm.
Incredible, right? I would say also I think that this isn't like I won't like you less if you do this, so don't take it this way. This is something that I struggle with as well, but also like don't try to be your coach's favorite client. For me, to clarify, again, it's not like it's like that's a bad thing, but I think more so like a lot of times, at least for me, it's easy to get into like, well, then it's like way, way harder for me to communicate with them, like where I am struggling with, because it's like, well, I don't want to be annoying, right? They already have these other clients who they have to deal with, and I want to be their favorite client, so I don't want to communicate these things, or I don't want to tell like that I messed up here or I was off here. And then ultimately, it actually makes it so much harder to coach you, right? Like the clients that I enjoy working with the most um, aren't people who are just perfect every single week. We don't have any clients who are actually perfect every single week, nor are we perfect every single week. It is just, as you guys said, people who are communicating well, people who are engaged in the process. Um, but I think that a big part of that is actually those people are also willing to communicate and share like when they're struggling and aren't. That's again just like, or don't think of it as like, if this is truly the goal, don't think of it as like I only have to communicate the good in order for like my coach to enjoy working with me, because we love problem solving, and that's like one of the most fun parts of coaching is helping someone like, oh, we worked through this thing, we like helped you address this thing, and that's huge. That was a huge obstacle for our progress. Anything else y'all would add there?
I think that's a great shout. And I would sum a lot of this up too with, people who are process oriented. And I get it because every single one of us is, with a coach for a result, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
we all want, we do too, like with our coaches, we want results. But understanding that the results are a byproduct of pouring into the process, and as much as you can enjoy the process, the whole thing becomes so much more fun.
100%. All right, what phase is Jeremiah in? Maintenance, fat loss, build, or YOLO? From our girl Shelby.
Do you want me to take this
And
one?
take it away. What do you got?
Right. Well, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
I am in a building phase. I was a kind of like a lean building phase since the photo shoot. I mean, we've just been slowly building. I'm also in a place where like I'm not planning to like compete in the near future or anything like that. So also like just as much what I love is just like trying different things, learning like different coaching approaches. So it's, I would say like in terms of that, it's for sure like we have been building, yes, but also it's been like Bax and I have been like trying lots of different approaches to things. Like we shifted my training from 5 days a week to 4 days a week. So it's been like in a place where I'm not super attached. Like we have to do it in this hyper specific way, but it's definitely like we've been in a building phase. Like my goal right now is just to build muscle tissue. Um, and yeah, I mean, I'm happy with where I'm at. I'm having a lot of fun with where we're at currently. It's more so just like I just feel like I haven't like honestly thought about. I don't feel like at this point I'm like thinking a whole lot about like in 6 months I need to like be here in my building phase. It's just truly just like having so much fun with the process of it all that like I feel like in the photo shoot prep you're so much more focused on like how your body is actually changing. For example, what am I seeing week to week? I don't feel like that's where I'm at all right now, or like this urgency to like I need to have built so much muscle in a year so that next time I get leaner I look different. It's just, yeah, we are building, but I haven't really even like thought about it that much. It's just cool, fun. Like I feel great. I'm feeling great in my training. We're progressing, and we get to like try and experiment with like fun, different shit along the way. That makes sense. You guys want to add anything on what I'm up to? um, Elevated coaching systems, Natalie. I think this was directed at you. Asked, "Why are you so horrible?" That is a. I'm just kidding. We
I know
gotta
that was directed at you, so take it away.
gotta revoke Natalie's access to the team account. Um, Thoughts on the addition of the fit model division? What do you got for us? Either of you. Is that's what you're competing in right now, Natalie?
No.
Just kidding.
I like it. So for context, this is the most recently added division to the NPC bodybuilding categories, divisions. And so prior you to that, you had bikini, figure, women's physique and women's bodybuilding. And so now they've added fit model. So now it's like fit model is sort of the predecessor to bikini. And what it is basically where bikini was about 10 or so years ago. Like any sport, the sport continues to evolve, right? Like people, aspire to like higher levels, like more extremes. So as the sport evolves, they have put in this division more as kind of like a starting point for, people to get into the sport of bodybuilding with way less barriers. So it's a less muscled division. The conditioning is not as conditioned or lean. Um, all that to say, you do need muscle for the division, and you do have to be lean for the division, but it's not some of the extremes that you see in the other divisions. So at first, I admit I was kind of like, I was not into it because I was like, this is just gonna make bodybuilding shows really long. Like they're already so long. And also, the idea that, well, the sport is supposed to be hard at the competitive level, but as we've kind of seen it play out, I'm very into it. I like the look. I think this is a look that is attainable with work, of course, with the proper guidance and work. I'm not going to say like you can just roll in off the street and compete at Fit Model. No, like there's absolutely strategy. I think it's a cool point right now in the sport because the criteria is being built before our very eyes. So this is really 2025 is the first season of Fit Model. So that criteria is shaping and forming as we speak, and will of course continue to evolve as we see like who's rewarded and contingent upon who shows up to these competitions. But I think it's a really great way to get people into the sport, and without having to like push some of the extremes that bodybuilding is known for. I love to see women excited about physique development, excited about their training, like nourishing their bodies with purpose. Like I love that. And if that's what this opens the door for, then I'm very much all for it.
Cool. But Andrea, any additional thoughts?
I agree fully with all of that. Um, and Fit Model is already, at least at some shows, already looking way different than it did in the spring shows. So it'll be interesting to see how much that evolves. But at this point, you have to have years of training under your belt already before getting into bikini. They're just getting bigger and bigger. And so it gives people who either don't want that look or can't get to that look a way to compete. And it also, one of the things that I like about it, gives it a lower cost entry point because the suits are really expensive and the Fit Model suits don't have the like what do you call them, like jewels or whatever, don't have the bling on them.
Rhinestones.
Yeah. And so it's way less expensive doing that versus the regular competition suit.
And like the time investment as well, because now like you said, the bikini standard is such that like it takes years
Mm-hmm.
to
Yeah.
like, get to the bikini standard. And, especially if you're like someone who is a little bit older, like a masters competitor, which honestly, I'm a masters competitor, and I'm a big fan of like older women getting into the sport of bodybuilding because I think they're just at a great point in their lives to like to pursue something like this. Like they're well established in their career, so they're well off like financially. Maybe they've already had kids and the kids are old enough that they're, they're not toddlers that they're looking after like from a time perspective. So like for maybe an older woman who maybe doesn't have the training age or the training experience to realistically be able to aspire to like a more muscular division, like from a time investment perspective, it's like, hey, I want to pursue this and like I do want to get on stage, but like I don't want to wait like 5 years, 7 years until I have enough muscle to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is just a great entry point, and all the points that Andrea made in terms of like finances and everything, like it's a great way to like dip your toe into the competitive pool and be like, do I even like this? Like, do I even want to pursue a more muscular division? Like, and it's a great way if you do want to pursue bikini, figure, women's physique, bodybuilding, something like that. This can be just a great stepping stone to that too, in terms of like getting stage experience. Because just like stepping on stage in and of itself is a skill. And like the stage presence, like, yes, the posing is different between all divisions, but you're still like logging some stage time and experience.
Yeah, the thing I don't love is that stallion pose.
Yeah,
I
I
just
don't mind it. I could like it.
It's a
I,
stallion pose.
It's their
And
front
like
pose.
their front pose, you're shifted back on your back leg, and then your front leg is like out straight in front of you. I just don't love the way it looks.
oh,
It's like the old bikini front
Yeah,
pose.
I'll have to check
Google
that
it
out.
later.
Okay, fair enough. You're not actually imitating a stallion though, like rearing up on its back two legs is what I pictured. Fair enough. Yeah, I think from the outside looking in, I'm of course not as up to date or like in the loop with all this as either of y'all, but it does seem like it's been something where initially a lot of people in the bodybuilding community were like, fuck this, basically. And then has turned into something that is really cool and like very a lot more welcoming, it seems like, and a lot less daunting, I would imagine, as like a first step to kind of dip your toes in if you were interested in it. It seems like the community around it is like very like warm and supportive. I don't know if that's accurate or not, but my perception of it seems like at least around the fit model division specifically, or like the coaches I follow who are like more so connected to that, it seems like that's the case. Cool. Anything else there? Um, Andrea, if carbs are already split 50-50 pre and post workout, but you wanted to increase, would you put more into pre or post?
I really think you can't go wrong either way. How I would decide this is if putting more carbs before your training is going to make you feel too full or bloated during your training, I would put them after. Otherwise, I would put them before because it's just more fuel to be able to have a good training session. You also have the option, if you're not using an intra workout, to use intra workout carbs. And in that case, I would definitely go with intra workout carbs.
Yeah, if I'm in a situation where it's like, okay, we have an abundance of carbs pre and post workout, I would typically look to next, have I maxed out intra workout carbs with like what's feasible, realistic, which I would say for most people, depending on like the size of the human, is probably like, I don't know, 30, 40-ish grams of carbs, unless we're working with like a much larger individual. I typically won't push it much past that. Do you all agree? We would push it higher. Again, unless we're like, if we're talking like more endurance training, I might adjust that more, but talking like resistance training specifically. Um, and then past that, I mean, it gets to a point as well where it's like, hey, if pre-workout, again, like it's actually detrimental, we're so full from all the carbs, we don't like need to push any more intra-workout. If you are the blessed person who like needs to continue to push your food higher, we also don't have to be too married to like, I have to have this like 50-50 split and I have to keep adding carbs just like pre or post workout. It might actually just make more sense to add more later in the day past a certain point. But again, I'm like, do a ton of people get there to where like we have that blessing? Not necessarily.
I think context is really important too, because we have a lot of people training early in the morning. And the thing you have to take into account is like, okay, well, what did your meal look like the night prior?
Mm-hmm.
And like, are you that person that's rolling out of bed at 4 a.m. in the gym by 4:30? So like, they're not going to be able to get a lot of food in which case, like, yes, intra comes in too, but like that might be where we kind of talk a little bit more about maybe the meal the night prior. But maybe this person, is training in the morning, but they're able to get in like a full meal. So I don't know, just throwing it in that like context is of course really important. In a vacuum for this question, I do like a lot of carbs post in terms of recovery from your training session. Um, but also assuming that we have fueled the session appropriately. So I'm not saying like we went in with zero and we're just putting everything after, but I do like a good amount post for most people to recover from. But again, it really depends on the context of the rest of their day and
Mm-hmm.
what their schedule looks like.
We're so bad at rapid fire because
I
all
know.
of us are like, but what about this situation?
That's a good point though, to continue to not be good
Yeah.
at the rapid fire side of things. And that's the pre-workout meal especially, I don't like to push that up to like a massive meal. There are very few instances where it's like, again, we're going to push someone to like 200 grams of carbs like in their pre-workout meal, for example.
Oof.
I
Yeah.
guess you would be eating like, go ahead.
Yeah, like I got a lot of ladies who are eating like 3,000 calories, right? And so like, and maybe if they're training at 10 a.m., they can wake up and eat a really good meal like
Mhm.
2 to 3 hours before, and that is their pre-workout, kind of thing. And maybe then they just kind of have an intra sort of thing. So they're like hauling on some sourdough. Jealous.
Natalie's just arguing for the sake of arguing now. So
Yes.
I'm just kidding. I agree with you. Can I get optimal results by doing CrossFit and a more traditional weightlifting program together?
Take it
So
away,
when we're
Natalie.
talking, do you want to take that one, Natalie?
I do love CrossFit.
CrossFit coach,
I
former
do.
CrossFit coach, take it away.
Yeah. Um, it really depends. I will say for the right athlete, yes,
Now she said
because
optimal,
I
optimal
said for
results.
the right athlete with the
Optimal
right
for what?
coach. Huh?
Optimal
That's the
for
thing.
what?
Is
Yeah, so I'm gonna assume they mean optimal like physique results. That's how I'm reading it, right?
mhm.
Like, and we'll never really know because there's a complete inability to A/B test one person, like, but for the right coach and athlete combination, I think you can make a lot of progress. But what that takes is a lot of experience and self awareness from the athlete and a lot of communication. That athlete needs to be experienced enough in the methodology of CrossFit, in lifting as well as like biofeedback their own body. Like they need to be able to communicate, like to auto regulate, basically. Because what I often like to say about CrossFit is that everyone likes to focus on like, oh, there's Olympic lifting, there's weightlifting, there's resistance training. And it's like, yes and no. Like, yes. And of course, depending on the CrossFit gym that you go to and their programming, like, which varies wildly, and that's the wild card, of course. But like, CrossFit as a methodology is cardio. You're just using all of these different implements to test your cardiovascular fitness. So like yes, you are using a barbell. Like yes, you are deadlifting, but at the end of the day, it's usually like a time-bound goal, like how quickly can I do this kind of thing. Yes, there are exceptions. We're trying to do rapid fires, don't want to get into it, but largely CrossFit is kind of like it's a means of testing your cardiovascular fitness. Like how much work can you do like across broad time modal domains, like sort of thing. You're just using all of these different implements to test it. So if we are utilizing CrossFit as cardio, I think that there could be a very smart and clever way to do that. But like I said, you need the right coach who can marry the two things, and you need the right athlete who knows how to auto regulate. So when they go into a CrossFit class, I don't know, maybe like they're following their gym's programming for CrossFit or something like that, who doesn't see like 1 RM deadlift that day and just like go to town on it. Or like 5x5 back squat. Cool. We're going to like go for a 5 RM here. It's like that's where you really get into trouble. And that's like the jack of all trades, master at none sort of thing. And I would add, we have to watch overall just like systemic fatigue, central nervous system fatigue, in terms of like how many times per week are you wanting to do CrossFit? Because in my mind, when I'm like imagining this like ideal coach athlete relationship communication scenario, a CrossFit programming, hypertrophy programming, nutrition strategy, when I'm imagining all of these things in my mind, I'm like, okay, so that person's doing like twice a week CrossFit, which might not be what this question asker wants to hear. So the question asker might be thinking like, oh, no, 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 I'm going to go hit like 5 times a week CrossFit because that's what they love to do, and I'm going to hit like 3 days hypertrophy, like, whoa, wow, and then 5 days of CrossFit programming, even if it's quote intelligent programming, that's a lot. That's just a lot of volume and it's a lot of variation. So then how do you get into this jigsaw puzzle of like, well, I'm training hypertrophy 2 to 3 times per week, and like this is an upper body day, this is a lower body day, like, and now we've got this giant algorithm like of a logic puzzle here. So there are just so many considerations, and I I I I don't think the answer is as easy as someone wants it to be, but I think if you could find a really like knowledgeable coach who's well versed in both, then you could do it. However, most people who ask this question want to go to their gym. So again, that's like the wild west of programming. I don't know what your gym is, and they're getting programming, CrossFit programming from this coach gym, and then they go elsewhere for like hypertrophy and nutrition, and like they're three kind of very disparate and separate things. And I think most people go to CrossFit because they enjoy that community aspect. So it's like they don't want one coach to like handle all of this, because what they're really doing is they want to go to the class and they want to participate in the class with their friends. And like I get that, and that is the best part about CrossFit. However, like is this making sense? It's like you can find one central coach like myself who is well versed in all of these things. I like could write a kick-ass program for this person, but then I'd probably be removing the very things about CrossFit that this person wants, which is like community, group class, doing the same thing as everyone else, racing and getting pushed with everyone else. And like that's not what I would write unless everyone at that gym wants to hop on the program I just wrote. My take.
I
Sorry,
Andrea,
strongly. I have a lot of thoughts.
I agree with you that it can be done with all of the right programming, but because they asked about optimal, I still think it's a no, honestly.
Well, like I said, you could make it optimal, but I don't think it's necessarily practical or what anyone has in mind. Like, I think you'd kind of be stripping CrossFit of what people enjoy about CrossFit in order to make it optimal.
yeah, I mean, when we're looking at this is a my mind was a lot more made up before Natalie answered that. That was a great response, actually, and you changed my take on that quite a bit. But I mean, if we're looking at, okay, I want to maximize my ability to grow, basically my ability to build muscle tissue is what the angle that I'm looking at this from. We are probably going to want to be like right within the amount of stimulus to like in terms of the like fatigue costs we're creating in our training. In our actual training sessions, we're probably going to be like want to be, if we're looking at optimizing muscle growth, we want to be like, okay, where is this like fine line between I'm creating just enough stimulus for myself to be able to recover from, just enough fatigue for myself to be able to recover from. And that's going to be like when we can still recover from that, maximizing that stimulus, then we're kind of maximizing our ability to grow. Even if it is like we're using it as cardio, it's still not going to be like we're just like doing zone 2 cardio on like an incline treadmill, right? Which now similarly, like this is so like, people want to run, right? Is that like there's so much more than just like how does this work with real life? It's still going to eat away at a recovery capacity a bit in terms of like if I'm doing like hang cleans or like deadlifts for time for my cardio rather than again like incline walking, which is I don't blame you if you don't want to just do incline walking, but I still think it would eat away at a bit at our ability to cover. That said, we can for sure I for sure think you can marry them and do quite well, as you said, Natalie. And I don't think that for most people, like I feel like I'm looking at this from a very nuanced, like, if I was like trying to get as jacked as Natalie, would I want this person to do CrossFit? Not necessarily, but like for an average person,
Because
like
it
trying
is
to get,
cardio with weights, I just don't see how it could not take away from, like you said, the maximum volume that we could do with hypertrophy training. I don't think there's anybody that could program that better than Natalie, and it's for sure doable, but I just don't think it's ever going to be optimal.
All right, we have a new a system that we are offering clients. I'm gonna brand myself as the I don't know, what would you call that?
I have nothing clever at the moment,
Does that
honestly.
count as like Marcus Philly's like functional bodybuilding or something? I don't know.
Yeah.
Something like
That's what I was just, I don't have anything at the moment. I'll let you know when it comes to me. Cool. Anything else on that before we continue?
I think one thing I will add though is like I will kind of like steer back towards Andrea's answer by adding like, okay, if we define optimal physique development, that might mean stepping on stage for a bodybuilding show. If that's like, I mean, if we're really like trying to define like what is absolute optimal physique development, right? If that's the definition, absolutely I would not want a prep client doing CrossFit. Like absolutely not. So like I guess that would be my answer. I don't know. Rapid
There's
fire.
so many. So basically, it depends on how you define optimal. We can for sure make it work if you want to get jacked and lean. If your goal is to be the next Ronnie Coleman, he wasn't CrossFitting. Um, when creating a meal plan, what are the key things to include? Andrea, what are you looking to include in a meal plan?
Um, I always go back to the vertical diet principles where there are a few foods that if the person likes them, I like to include them for the micronutrients that we get from them, like a whole egg and spinach, berries. So I'll try and fit those in if at all possible. Red meat is another one. I'm always doing this off of a baseline of what the person likes though. Like obviously if it's a vegan, those the red meat is not going to be part of it. So like their dietary preferences are taken into account for sure. And I'll try and keep a lot of the person's meal plan relatively similar in structure and taste profile to what they've been eating while also sneaking in those more micronutrient dense foods. And then also making sure for most people, like for the people that are coming to us, they're a little bit more advanced. They want to optimize these kind of things. I'm gonna have more of their higher carb, lower fat, easier to digest foods pre and post workout, and then the more fibrous, higher fat foods away from their workout. So that's like that's the quick version of it.
Yeah, ultimately, we want to make sure we're hitting someone's micronutrient needs when we're building a meal plan. But there's so many different ways you can go about that. It doesn't have to just be like the vertical diet principles, but I agree that's typically like
They are the
my
most like bang
so
for your
easy to
buck.
apply.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I will ideally have a couple servings of berries per day, a couple servings of spinach per day, and then a couple additional servings of veggies, sometimes some carrots, at least one egg, some like potato daily, serving of almonds if the person does well with it, or serving a dairy, ideally going to be like a Greek yogurt. And then like yes, if they like red meat, that's incredible for like your iron, your B vitamins, zinc, things like that. And then our omegas, like if they like fatty fish, a couple times a week, cool. Or like an omega 3 supplement, the vitamin D supplement will typically be needed and helpful. Um, but really, like there are a lot of instances where like, and I like that as like a basic framework, like hey, we can take this most of the time, it's we can feel quite good about this person hitting most of their micronutrient needs. But yes, that'll vary so much in like what the person actually prefers. And that's the beauty of it, is there's so many different ways to go about this, so there's not like anything we have to include as long as we are filling those micronutrient gaps. Anything else to add, either of y'all? All right. Do you utilize different training phases to overcome plateaus rather than deloading? Plateaus. It's
I'll add
definitely
context
plateaus.
here just because Jen asked this question. I know that she is going through the in one course. Yeah. And so I think it's coming from that perspective of like they use the different training phases rather than deloading.
Okay, okay. No, that makes complete sense. This is a conversation I've had quite a bit lately, actually. Um, um, no, I personally don't prefer to. Well, I think it is a cool theory. I just in application, I have not seen it play out nearly as well, moving through all of the different phases in terms of like we have our metabolic phases, our neurological or strength phases, we have our hypertrophy, like their tension phases. Again, it's a really cool concept and it's sexy, right? It's kind of like the phases of nutrition, super sexy. But like I like the idea, but it's again, I find for most people, just when we're like, okay, we're gonna go through like a 2 week metabolic phase, for example, to deload. The metabolic phases, especially, I find most people just hate. I really did not like either. But also, so often, at least in the way that have seen this applied, or just changing, especially when it's like consistently like 4 to 6 week blocks, we're changing a lot of our movements within those blocks. People just never actually get to the point where they're executing the movement well enough to grow, and we're not pushing hard enough to the point where we like can really push it hard enough to grow. Like I will say, like it is very, very common for us to be working with a client and it's been like 6+ weeks and we're still like trying to master several movements we've been working with them on since the start. First, in terms of execution, but also then are we actually pushing this hard enough to stimulate growth? And then if we're changing that, like that's the biggest issue I think is like the variety that comes in. Um, and then alongside that, again, like I understand the logic behind it, but it's still an application. It's like this relative to like what's the trade-off? Like, okay, if I'm going to a metabolic phase for like 3 weeks, for example, can I say that it's going to give me a better outcome than if I just like deloaded and like had those like 2 extra weeks in hypertrophy, right? And that's again when we're spending like so much time like optimizing for the goal. Like, okay, in theory, like if I'm in a better place, like if I do a metabolic phase or like the strength phase allows me to like get better like expression of, I can fire more of these motor units at the same time. But also us just like saying hypertrophy will help improve those things and get us better at the skill as well. And I think it's hard to argue that it's actually going to be like more beneficial there. I don't know. So no, personally, I'm not a fan. A lot of coaches who are very smart, I respect a ton, do it. And still like we can for sure still make some progress there. But this is something we programmed this way for a decent amount of time. And I've gone like personally been coached through it we went through a whole mentorship that was around this. And ultimately still I've for sure seen better client outcomes with the approach we take now. What would y'all add there or disagree?
I think that was well put. Um, I guess it's not really the time to get into like how we deload people or anything, but yeah, I'm more likely. Yeah, no, I'll leave it. Agreed.
Andrea, anything else for you?
No, I totally agree. And I trained that way for a year and a half and I made some progress, but I've for sure made a lot more progress just doing it the way we do it now. Similar with my clients. So
I'm 100% seeing the same thing. I think like around 6 weeks into doing a movement is honestly where you're getting to the part where it is like really fucking grindy and like that is actually, and then like the next few months of you doing that, it's just, again, I understand the appeal of it because it is a lot more attractive to like, oh, and then I can switch to this other phase. But it is truly like that is where we make the most progress, where it's like, man, I'm just grinding, but I got that extra rep this week. And there's like 2 weeks where we might not progress, and then I got another. Like that's where we actually grow.
mhm.
Okay, fuck, marry, kill, building, maintenance, and diet phases. Natalie, what you got?
I'm absolutely gonna marry building.
Yeah, I
Nice.
agree with
Okay.
that.
Um, I'd probably kill dieting if I had to choose. I don't know, because like that's a hard one, because like we all love that momentary like. I mean, again, I'm dieting now, but I like haven't dieted for basically 3 years, so it's like yeah, I'd tap that for like a little while and kind of go back. Like that's kind of how I feel about dieting. um,
You saying I tap that is the funniest thing that I have heard in a while.
um, yeah, I feel like that kind of answers it. I would for sure marry building though. It's my absolute favorite when you are just like so focused on building muscle, like training feels good. I mean, I am someone who can eat quite a lot in a building phase, but not like so much that I'm forcing food. Like I don't think I will never be that person who has to force food. I love food. I love to eat. It's not hard for me to get food down. So like yeah, I would absolutely marry building. It's the best. Life is so good there.
Oh, truly.
But this is also
Andrea?
coming from the context of someone who's dieting.
Yeah. I'm also marrying building. Kill maintenance. And it's just too of the three, like we've got to have the other two. We got to have maintenance in practice too, but in this exercise, I'm gonna fuck dieting.
All right. I would honestly say the exact same thing.
As
Did we all
me?
answer the same way?
Uns
Yeah.
Unsurprisingly, we're
No,
all
I thought you were
aligned.
killing dieting, Natalie.
Oh yeah. No,
No, you killed maintenance.
I
Oh,
killed
okay.
maintenance, which is kind of off brand for me, but given the other answers, I feel like that's what I have to go with. But I think this is unsurprising for all of us because building is where you build your shape. And I think that's probably why we all feel that way. Like it's so important to getting the results that you want.
You also you can't you can't appreciate dieting without having spent enough time away from it in a building phase.
For sure. I think that a lot of times people like kind of turn maintenance phases into like pseudo diet phases almost, where it is like trying so hard to like stay my leanness. I'm so afraid of letting go of that. Building phases and I'm just gonna diet again. Are so much more fun personally, but to each their own. How to stop ego lifting. I know it's bad and I still cannot stop. I would,
Do you have a coach?
I believe they do. Um, I mean, I think it's asking what's the goal here, right? Like you're, like let's say your goal is to grow your quads. Your quads don't grow because they know, okay, she has 3 plates on the hack squat, even though she's only doing the quarter reps. They don't grow as like they don't grow as a result of the number on the bar, right? There's especially because typically it's either we're using very poor technique or we're using very poor range of motion, which I guess would be kind of one and the same. So either way, we're not actually applying tension to the tissue that we're trying to grow, and the tissue is going to grow as a result of tension, significant tension being applied to it. So we're not actually getting the stimulus we need to build muscle, right? So it's like, is your goal to, I don't know, just lift heavy things through a small range of motion or poorly for the sake of that, or is it actually to grow? Because it's like it's counterproductive to the goal, and just stop. I guess I don't have anything else to add there.
Just
What else would you all add? If anything?
I mean, it's hard to check your ego on movements once you've kind of set that standard. So I get it, but I, I think you said it. Like, just it's counterintuitive to your goal.
Yeah, I think a lot to myself. Like I'm chasing. Okay, my goal in the set is I'm chasing because I can get caught up in this with like the like Kyle, my coach, has like used like a racy to 5 plates on the gym Leco hack squat because we both use the same hack squat. So I know like what he does on his hack squat, and I'm like getting close. So every week it's been like I should add like 20 pounds here, and I could maybe do it. And then it's like okay, I start to feel that like I am not actually executing this as well as I could. I'm not actually getting as good a stimulus out of it. And that's ultimately like that's the goal is again. It's like I'm chasing the stimulus. I'm not just chasing progressing load for the sake of progressing load because my goal is muscle growth. So I
I
don't know
think
if there's
what
anything else. Go ahead.
I would say what Andrea led with, which is like, do you have a coach? Because this is when form checks become important. So, I think we all get into that, even those of us who kind of know better, like get into that pattern of like wanting to beat the logbook and like just wanting to progress so much. We just want to see that tangible progress, right? Like that upward trajectory. And sometimes we're like chasing those reps or chasing that load. And, I'll get a comment from, my coach who's like, yo, clean up the tempo there, like transitions getting sloppy, and it's like those are kind of like my gut checks, like, oh, okay, like, um, but yeah, overall keeping the goal in mind.
Perfect. Most unhinged thing you have done to stay on track with training or nutrition. I thought you'd be the first to answer. Go ahead.
Pick me, pick me. Well, considering I'm probably the most unhinged member of this team, I'll take the lead on this. Um, I don't know if I would say it's unhinged, but I have traveled on a gut protocol. And I came out to Arizona and did like this big road trip, and I literally packed like 9 days worth of food like ahead of time and took it with me on a flight. from DC to Arizona.
It was
Um,
quite a lot.
but like I was just like, I mean, this was a gut protocol, and I was like, I'm not
Yeah.
doing this again. Like I am not messing this up. Like I'm gonna get through this and move on. um, and I've done similar things just for my regular nutrition. Like, I mean, I traveled in prep like a month or so ago, and to be honest, it was way easier than traveling on a gut protocol, I'll tell you that. Um, but yeah, I would say probably that, and like every iteration of, like hotel meal and combination, well, like making things you wouldn't have imagined, like in microwaves that don't really make sense. And I remember like also road tripping up to like Minnesota a couple summers ago, and like I was driving, so like I brought my air fryer, and like every as you do, and like every where I stopped, like every like hotel, Airbnb, I like brought in my air fryer and used it. Um, but I like my food tasted great, so no, I would do it all over again. And I stayed on track.
I'm trying to think of like I don't feel like anything I've done is like that unhinged. Like I've been in like when we were having the salad wars thing, Natalie, where like Andrea and I, or not Andrea and I, so Katie and I went on our trip around Arizona, and I like packed all of my food in a cooler, and like I was just eating gross food for like 3 or 4 days, like just cold. You know when like you like make like ground turkey, like sits in the container in the fridge, and there's like that gelatin at the bottom.
Ugh.
But I also didn't care to like try to find somewhere to microwave it and warm it up. Like that was pretty like there were some times where it was pretty gross, but I don't feel like there's
Weren't you
anything that's
around like a sack of food in Portugal? Like a,
I guess I don't know. It doesn't like seem that unhinged to me though.
I
But
know,
yeah,
I
I
think
did
that's
have
a strong word.
Yeah, well, when I read this, my brain went to like eating a whole bunch of sugar-free like not I haven't done this, but like that sort of thing unhinged, like eating weird stuff to stay on track. But I could because I don't think that that kind of thing is unhinged either to just take your food with you. I the first time that I went out to Arizona, I was on a pretty low carb um target my targets were pretty low carb at that point. So I think I ate tuna and almonds for like every single meal while I was there, Jeremiah.
I do remember that, yeah.
But I guess I didn't think about that as unhinged. But I think most people would probably think that that was a little unhinged.
I remember thinking that was super unhinged. I'm just playing. No, I don't. Um,
I
I
don't think
don't know
any
if
of
I.
us have done the like eat 10 cups of sugar-free jello.
Oh, I for sure know mine actually. Which this is like just I'm like way back in the past when I was doing the like I didn't know anything about nutrition at the time. This was like 2015, 20 before that actually. This was like when I first was like about to start coaching people, and I was like the first diet where I successfully lost weight, which I lost like 40, 50 pounds, was this. I would fast, eat ground beef, avocado, and a bag of steamed veggies for breakfast, lunch, and then have like banana and peanut butter to end the day. This is again like I wouldn't
Doesn't
definitely not
sound
do this
bad.
now. But I got so it's not, but I got so sick of eating these avocados that would like make me gag to eat them. But it was like I was so attached to like I had to follow the plan, had to follow the plan, and like this is what's worked for me, not to stop doing it. That I would like I had a kitchen timer that like one of those you twist. I would like set a timer and like okay, I have to finish this avocado by the time that this timer is up, and it would be like just like gagging, like trying to get this avocado down by itself. It was just like a battle with myself. I don't know. That's probably not that I would again like it was ridiculous now but I just didn't understand at the time. That's probably like the thing I could think of in that case.
I did make some weird food whenever I first started tracking macros because that was like IFYM. Like Instagram was full of like weird concoctions and things you could make to fit your macros. Protein fluff.
I
I
can remember you. Go ahead.
I think I did talk about this once, but like I did do the master cleanse once.
Oof.
What is the master cleanse?
Like it was like I remember I was like in post grad school or something like that, and like this was way before I knew anything about nutrition, so I do not recommend this. But this came out that like Beyonce had done the master cleanse, and I was like,
Queen
well,
bee.
I was like, I should do this too, obviously. Um, and it's like the lemonade diet or whatever, where it's just like lemon juice, cayenne, maple syrup, and that's all that you have. And like, and I think you got like a scoop or two of like a vegan like pea protein powder once per day, twice per day, something like that. So you're fasting essentially, yeah. And I did it for 14 days. So if anyone has ever questioned how I have the mental resilience to like prep or do anything like that, I've been at it a long time. Um, but so I fasted for like 14 days of this lemonade diet, and that was interesting. That is, of course, extremely unhinged.
It was a lemonade diet because it was like what she did for the album Lemonade. Isn't that a Beyonce
Well,
album?
because there was lemon juice and like cayenne and maple syrup, so you were like making a pseudo lemonade.
Got it. Okay. I thought it was
You can Google it.
not related. Okay, fair enough.
No one
Let's
should be
continue.
doing this. Please don't do that.
Thoughts on intuitive eating? Who wants it?
I think it's very difficult, if not impossible, to if this is connected with any sort of physical at all, it's very difficult to do if you haven't spent time first quantifying your food. Intuitive eating for the purpose of just like having a handle on your hunger signals and eating healthy, like that's great, but if it's tied to any sort of physical at all, I just don't think I've ever seen it done well. Unless somebody has years of tracking first, because then you basically are just mentally putting your meals together in a way that you kind of already know what they are, macro wise.
The body doesn't want to change. Like your body wants homeostasis. It wants to stay the same. And so what we're doing moving through these phases of nutrition, of building or dieting or training, is that we're forcing adaptation. So we are like forcing growth stimulus, forcing the body to do things that it doesn't necessarily want to do. And so therefore, eating in a commiserate way is not necessarily intuitive with those things, because what you're talking about is like if you're building, you're overeating. If you're dieting, you're undereating. And eating to support muscle growth is often not intuitive. So things like, hey, well, we want to like give greater weight to carbohydrates, for example, because they're the body's preferred energy source. Like that isn't necessarily intuitive to like eat enough to grow. Um, I feel like I also have to mention that like the term intuitive eating gets thrown around a lot. And I know what people mean by it, but like it is an actual thing. Like it is like if you look up actual intuitive eating and intuitive eating coaching, like it is its own brand. Like it's actually like this whole other thing. And I don't want to speak to it because I'm not versed in actual intuitive eating, but it does not belong, in my opinion, kind of like what Andrea said, with in the same world as like physique goals. I think I think there are elements to it that we can draw upon and they can coexist. So like taking a free untracked day, when you're in a building phase and a maintenance phase and talking about strategies for like how to be mindful. But I think it has a time and a place, but I think people who have an intuitive eating goal are probably better served making that the goal versus like, and I want to have my leanest physique ever. It's like, because who wouldn't, right? Like, who wouldn't want to be like their leanest physique ever and never have to track anything or think about it? Me too. But, that yeah, my take, my two
Some
cents.
people will so intuitively undereat, and some people will intuitively overeat. That's
Mm-hmm.
so individual based on
Mm-hmm.
the person. It's crazy how different that is from person to person.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest thing to understand about it is like your biology is hardwired for survival. It is not hardwired for you to have,
To be jacked.
right, to be jacked and lean at the same time. So like your intuition it's basically like your survival instincts are going to be what's guiding that. And it's probably going to tell you, like, hey, if there's lots of calorie dense food available and this tastes delicious, we should keep eating it. Not like, hey, oh, stop exactly here. So I think that's quite important is that it'll probably like, I feel like actual in the context that I would look at it as I think most people are looking at, okay, how do I like once I've gotten there, maybe I've tracked, but how do I maintain this result? Can I eventually transition away from tracking? I think is like in some way, shape, or form, like what a lot of times this question is asking. Yes, probably, but you have to have gotten good at maintaining that first before like probably by tracking and like understanding what that looks like very consistently before we actually are able to like transition away from tracking because a lot of the decisions you'll make again given like we're hardwired for survival not for like having the physique that you want to have typically like a lot of the decisions you have to make around food in that case will feel counterintuitive right like oh I should stop eating here when like I want to continue to or maybe like this is something that's best to avoid for today.
Like, man, my body really just wants this intra workout. Like, probably not.
That's a very good point. Anything else?
Who intuitively wants an intra workout? Well, I think there are some actually cool examples of like I'm gonna get this wrong. I feel like it might be like Alberto Nunez or like someone like that who have like successfully like dieted or prepped themselves like
Oh
intuitively,
yeah.
quote, intuitively. However, that person, someone like that is definitely the exception. That person has spent years doing this, like amassing and accumulating all of these skills and a very high level of experience. And also, that person is also repeating so much on the day to day so that when they decide, like, I am going to diet, it becomes a matter of like, I am so well versed and structured in my baseline. So now I'm just going to like subtract from my baseline kind of thing, but
Hmm.
that person, like all of those behaviors and success are rooted in everything that they did up until that point. And I think that's what people are trying to kind of skip a little bit is putting in that time. And we also have to acknowledge that sort of what like dopaminergic like world that we live in, where we have I don't like to sound conspiracy theorist or anything, but we have so many things that are literally engineered to hijack like our dopamine centers. So like food is just so available to most of us and so good. And so there's nothing intuitive about saying no to the extra Oreo, right? Because it is engineered to make us want more. So that's where we have to like apply our education. And I guess like through that, I think maybe over time it becomes intuitive, but I'm not sure it would ever like I would ever be at the point where my body didn't intuitively want more, or my brain rather didn't intuitively want more Oreos kind of thing. Like at some point my like higher level thinking has to kick in and be like, I understand that this is a hyper palatable, delicious food that is easy to overconsume. You've probably had enough.
Yeah, I don't see nearly as much around this as I used to. Maybe
Mm.
it's just a difference in like who I follow and whatnot now, but I know like I feel 2018, 2019-ish, there was a lot more intuitive eating coaches and it was typically framed as yes, for fat loss. And you would basically, and again, I'm not saying this is like the like intuitive eating TM, the actual intuitive eating coaches that Natalie alluded to, but how this was framed was you kind of just follow what you want, and if you trust your body, it'll lead you in the right direction. I don't think that for fat loss that usually works out well. Unfortunately, I love the idea. Be sick if that was the case, and it would be so easy to sell, but it's just not really how I ever see it play out. Cool. Anything else before we wrap it up? All right. As always, we appreciate y'all listening. If you enjoy the show, do us a huge favor. Leave us a 5-star rating or review. If you would like to apply for coaching, hit the link in the show notes, and we will catch you guys next time.